are sign-in sheets. Melissa has them at the back, and we'd like you to add your name and contact details so that we can get in touch with you over the coming weeks to tell you about those local mobilisations and the national demonstration. So if you have a diary handy, we're meeting on Saturday the 23rd in Dunleary at the church wall at 1 o'clock, and the national demonstration is taking place on April the 13th. That's a march from the Garden of Remembrance to Dublin Castle, where there's a meeting of the European Council of Ministers taking place.
Finance Ministers.
Or European Finance Ministers. So, I mean, as Richard was saying, it depends on making ourselves visible, in local street areas, local street corners, distributing campaign literature, and it also depends on bringing bodies out onto the street for the big national demos as well. So, I mean, that's really up to ourselves, really up to the people gathered here in this room. But I'll turn it over to the floor for questions. We have, it's just gone 8 o'clock. If it's okay with yourselves, I'd suggest till about 8:30, maybe 25 past 8, 8:30. Is that okay with people? Or is that okay? And then we'll wrap up the meeting then at that point. I just before I open it up, I just remind you that there are postcards, and you can make donations to the campaign for all the literature and materials as you leave as well. Okay, but before we go, just if you have any questions first, or points, or comments, or thoughts. Yeah.
Richard, did any solicitor look at the legislation? Is there no loophole in it at all? They all have the ability. What are they doing? Is there anybody that can see a hole in it, or is it completely worked?
There is solicitors looking at it, and I know of one case that is being taken, and in fact, I and a few other TDs may be called as witnesses on that particular case. There's a number of elements to the case that a particular woman in, I think it's Tipperary, is taking. She's on her own basis has gone to barristers and solicitors and asked them to take a case. And essentially the case revolves around the right of the state to interfere with her home. But another aspect, and the reason why I and a few others may be called as witnesses, is on the issue of the abuse of process within the Dáil itself for the passage of the legislation. I don't know if people are aware, but the government have had a practice of imposing guillotines on the debate around any legislation which is likely to be controversial or unpopular. So, if a bill is uncontroversial, they let it run for weeks and weeks and weeks in the Dáil, even though everybody agrees with it. But if it's controversial, like the property tax, they rush it through in 24 hours to try and prevent debate occurring in the media, in wider society. They take the votes late at night, as they did with the property tax. So part of the case there will be to say that the constitutional requirement of the government to properly scrutinise legislation, to allow proper debate in the Oireachtas and so on, has been abused by the government. And I certainly think there's a moral case definitely there. Whether all this will stand up legally is anybody's guess. But there are, and also the campaigns, solicitors and barristers are looking at every aspect of it. So we will pursue those things. And obviously if anybody had particular thoughts on that. But what I would say is, I don't think we can rely on the legal avenues, because they have a lot of legal people working for them as well, and they've tried to tie it up as tightly as they can legally to give themselves these powers. So I think in the last, in the last instance, the most important thing is people power, but we will explore all other avenues. That's all I want to say to that.
I'm just questioning the mode